Just needs to get the flock out of here.
At this time, I will call the meeting of the Marshall City Council to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone here this evening. We do have an agenda before us. Are there any changes to that agenda? If not, we'll operate under that agenda. The first item then would be the continuation of the public hearing. The procedural thing on this, do we need to reconvene by motion? So I'll reopen the public hearing.
We're going to approve the minutes first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Agenda item number 2, we'll take care of that before 3. Agenda item number 2 would be consider the approval of the minutes of the last regular council meeting that was held on February 25th. The council does have the minutes of that meeting. Are there any corrections?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Russ to approve the minutes as they have been presented. We'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting, and the motion does pass. Okay, now we will move into the continuation of the public hearing. This was the public hearing that was held at the last regular city council meeting. We recall that that meeting needed to end at 6:00 p.m. because of precinct caucus night, so it was continued until now. So this is the continuation of the public hearing on the improvement. As in the previous public hearing, I will ask City Engineer, Director of Public Works, Jason Anderson, to conduct a public hearing. You may have some additional information you want to share. We'll take public input as part of the public hearing. We'll follow the same procedure. Some of you were at the last meeting, so you know the procedure for the public hearing. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. So we'll start by just introducing where we've been and how we got to tonight. So this is a proposed project on the South 4th Street corridor between Elaine and Country Club Drive. It's a complete reconstruction being proposed with replacement of all utilities, water, sewer, storm sewer. We are proposing to significantly increase the size of the storm sewer to better serve the area. As I've noted at other work sessions, and I believe at the last council meeting, we'll need to follow this with another storm sewer project all the way out to Outlet to really see the benefit of this. But we're starting with a good foundation with this project to really make improvements in the area with drainage. So we held a public informational meeting on January 23rd at 5:30 at Marshall Municipal Utilities, where property owners were invited to the meeting to get some information from staff and ask some questions. We followed that up with a public hearing at council at the last meeting. At that time, we were proposing a project where we're planning to narrow the road by around 4 feet, and we were proposing a bike trail off the west side of the road, and we were proposing sidewalk on the east side of the road. After receiving some public input, we tabled it till tonight. But there was a kind of a resounding movement to kind of take another look at what we were proposing for a project. So that's what we're bringing forward tonight, is kind of a new look project with the road being replaced and the utilities being replaced, but the road section and what you see in the surface essentially being what it is today. So a 44.5 foot as measured from back of curb street section with sidewalk, 5 foot sidewalk width on the west side, and no bike trail, no sidewalk on the east side, and we'll paint the bike lanes back on the street. That's what we're proposing at this point. Cost estimate, I think we have at around $3.4 million with contingency and engineering figured in. We'll follow the current assessment policy. Marshall Municipal Utilities, the wastewater department, and the stormwater utility will all kick in their portion, and we will use state aid funds to cover some of the balance.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So I will now open up for any input as part of the public hearing. There may be some questions for Jason about, the revision to what was discussed at the last meeting during the same public hearing. So is there any input? Or is there any input from the council as part of the public hearing? Russ?
Mr. Mayor, Jason, I would just want to thank you, personally thank you for taking, and you and staff for taking a fresh look at this. I really appreciate that, because I think we have a response to our citizens, and I think I'm perfectly fine with the specs as you have presented tonight. I applaud you for the 5-foot sidewalk on the west side. I think replacing that entire sidewalk is much needed. There's just one area is on the south side, and the south end of 4th Street. You were going to, I don't remember, is it narrow it to make it even all the way across, or widen, right on the south by Elaine? Wasn't there something there?
I think for continuity, it'll actually widen down there. I think the street is maybe a little less than 40 feet wide on the
Right, so-
south end, and we'll
and
run the 44.5 foot all the way
And
down.
that's only
there.
on that one end, that's
Yeah.
correct. The other thing I want to make sure that our residents know, and the people in the audience as well, is that up on Camden Drive, you're going to still make that curve that hooks up with it, is it Greeley? Or,
It's Lucille. We're gonna-
Lucille,
Yeah,
okay.
we'll make sure that Camden comes in at a perpendicular angle to 4th Street to fix the site issues, so you're not having to look over your shoulder to look
Okay.
for oncoming traffic, so.
and my last request I'll bring up during council individual items, but yeah, thank you again.
Other input as part of the public hearing? Greg?
Yeah, I just want to thank Jason also and the staff, and then I want to thank the public for good input, good follow-through. I think this is absolutely the appropriate process, and thank you all for working hard. You represented your positions well, and we really appreciate it. Your input makes a difference on city council, so thank you.
Jim?
After much visitation with Jason and Craig and I talked about this, I'm fine at this project. The only question I have is, can you refresh me on what is the assessment policy for the sidewalks now?
Sure. We lump the sidewalk costs in with the street costs, and we do assess that per assessment policy back to neighboring property owners. The city does split that bill with the property owners 50/50 to help offset that cost. And that's after we've already taken out the utility portion of the project costs. So the utility portion, they pay their share for their facilities, they pay their share for the street above their facilities, and then we take what's remaining and we split it in half between the city and the property owners.
So the sidewalks will be fairly split between both sides, and I'm not trying to say it'd be fair to one side or the other, but since we took it off the one side, it's still going to be fairly split between owners on both sides of the street.
Maybe I can interject here too, Jason. And of course, there is a separate assessment hearing that this will be presented at, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very likely that whether there's a sidewalk in or out, we would have already reached the maximum amount that would be assessed to a property owner. So the excess to that would really be a city
cities, yeah.
expense. So whether there's a sidewalk or not, it probably wouldn't affect the
That's fine.
actual assessment.
Well, I just want to be fair to the folks who are getting the sidewalk that,
Right.
that it's split evenly amongst everybody on the block.
Good question.
One last question, Jason. Are you still expecting competitive bids for this project? You anticipate?
We are hearing word through MnDOT and some early lettings that prices are coming in generally higher than expected this construction season, about 7%. We'll see. We do build some contingency into this estimate, so hopefully we're still within reason there. We're also considering the topic of having an alternate bid, so we'll have a bid for one construction season and an alternate bid for 2 construction seasons. We're not set on that. It's just something that we're discussing as an option to see if it makes an impact on price.
Yeah, I think I would have some concerns about going over a winter without a hard surface. But
We absolutely would as well. If we were to do that, there'd be a requirement to have a hard surface in place for all the areas that they worked, and then it would just give them an opportunity to split the project in half. Not sure that we're in love with that topic because we don't want to make the property owners go through 2 construction seasons. That's not That's not a fun thing to endure, so it's really not something we prefer. We think if we can get the bids out, the project out to bid soon and get a contractor a start in the May timeframe, that we can do it in one season.
Other input as part of the public hearing? Any member of the audience want to speak as part of the public hearing? If not, is there a
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
motion by John, seconded by Jim? Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting, and the motion does pass. So once again, thank you to staff, thank you to the property owners. We'll move then to agenda item we'll now consider the resolution that would order the improvement and preparation of the plans. Are there,
Mr. Mayor, I move the resolution ordering improvement and preparation of plans for the project.
Second.
motion by Craig, seconded by Jim. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting, and the motion passes. And then the final action here will consider the resolution approving the plans and specifications and ordering the advertisement for the bids.
So move.
I'll second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. Close the voting, and the motion passes. We'll now move to agenda item number 4. This is also a public hearing. This is a public hearing regarding the home property tax abatement request. The location would be 314 Rainbow Road. Sharon?
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is a standard request for the home tax abatement. This is a 2-year tax abatement for 100%. That is specified in our home tax abatement policy. And you do have included in your packet the estimate of taxes per year and for a total estimated abatement over a 2-year period of $796. If approved, the application or the information would be submitted to the county, who also has a similar policy, although structured a little bit differently.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. We'll open up for input as part of the public hearing. Any member of the audience here to speak to this? Any member of the council have input?
I have some input, and I just want to say I fully support this, but I think we need to go back into our policy and possibly address who actually applies for these. Because the building permit was pulled by Habitat for Humanity. They're the developer of this house. So is it the developer who pulls it, or is it the first home buyer who buys the home? I don't care either way, but I think we need to put a consistency into our policy on what we do, if it's either developer or the first occupant.
Yeah, good question, Sharon.
My understanding and recollection of the policy, and correct me, Dave or Annette, is that it states, I think, pretty clear in the policy that the abatement can be transferred once the abatement is granted to the eventual owner of the property. I don't know if that's the question you were asking, or...
No, because then with that answer, then Habitat should have applied for it and transferred it, is the way the policy reads.
John?
Yeah, see, at the time this was set up in EDA, it was really brought up that either or could make the application.
Oh, it can be
And
either.
It can be either or. I think that was the original intent anyway, because it was an assumption that a developer would be passing on that to the homeowner, but in a situation where perhaps that house wasn't sold as quickly or whatever it could be, it didn't go against the actual cost of the house then. So, but yeah, it was original discussions, it was an either or.
And Dennis?
Well, and I know I handled the closing on this, and the developer did not want to get involved in the tax abatement issue at all, but the developer passed that on to the purchaser, who just said, remember, you are now the property owner, and your first stop should be to go to City Hall to request that tax abatement.
How does the policy actually read? Because I know we've been told that when I develop, we as a developer had to do it, not the first home buyer. I don't care. I just want the policy to read, is it either or, so we
I
get
guess-
it in the policy, so it's.
I don't recall the specific language in there.
And I'm
either.
fine with either or, because I fully support this. I just want to take the gray area out of it and make it black and white.
Dennis, let's follow up on that clarification.
Yes. Thank you. And with that, I'd make them,
Is there any other input as part of the public hearing? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'd make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting, and the motion passes. Steve will take care of these two related items, or the one related item related to the last public hearing, and then we'll have you join.
Bob, Mayor, should we vote on the,
That's the next item, yes. The resolution that would approve the home property tax
I'd
abatement.
make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Russ. Now, discussion on the motion. If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. The next agenda item will be agenda item number 5. This will be consider the award of bids for construction of a new restroom facility at Freedom Park. Jason, do you have this?
I think Preston Stensrud will take this.
Okay. Preston Stendrud from the Parks Department.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have what would be our third new restroom facility that we kind of approved back starting in 2017 to get the dated structures on a replacement plan. 2018 we did Justice Park. Last year we added a bathroom at Liberty Park, and this would be the third one recommended for restoration or new construction, replacing the old facility. It would be at Freedom Park. We did get 3 bids from local contractors. They were in the bid tab. They're provided, so Bladholm, Doom and Kuipers, and Susner. Susner Construction did come in with a low bid proposal of $122,700. I chose not to include demolition in the contract for construction, just for the fact of not putting markup on it. We can just pay right to D&G and have them do it. So that's why I chose to kind of separate that out. And there's a couple notes in Susner's bid that we'll work with Dennis on. They had some questions on insurance that would actually potentially lower their bid. But their 122.7 is the high, including everything, so it would only get less than that. And we'd just work forward confirming those once we have a contract. With that, I would recommend approval for the construction. They're looking to start as soon as possible here, like starting end of March, beginning of April, with a deadline of June 30th completion. So we'd be able to utilize it for half the summer or better and into the fall. In the meantime, while we don't have a facility there, we plan to just have a porta potty or 2 just to get by, because it does get used a lot. And this will be our first facility where we actually had to demolition of one facility to replace it, because the other ones have moved locations. So there was $140,000 in the budget, so I'd recommend approval.
Okay. Thank you, Preston. Questions for Preston? Russ?
Preston, just size of the building compared to the one in Justice.
The size would be 8 feet longer. So Justice is 20 by 20. This one would be 20 by 28, just because we need the storage for like sand volleyball, and then like all of our batting cage nets are stored in the back of this garage. At Justice, we chose not to add on, but then we took the old Justice bathroom and made it into a garage essentially, where here we don't have that option.
Yeah, so, and that, my only question is you're consistently faced with a storage issue. And I don't know if this is a magic solution or not, but, if we ever got to that point where we allowed you to have a bigger storage, would we need the storage there anyway?
For this, like the sand volleyball, we would.
We would?
Because what I'll call the score stands we put those away in and out each night versus just leaving them sit outside. And they're tall, that the umps stand on. And then, like I said, all the like boundary lines and all that stuff's kind of in this back room.
Okay.
I mean, that storage could get smaller, but we still need the mechanical for water heater and electrical and all that anyways. So it would take 160 square feet off the building, I guess. So,
Another question, are the bathroom, the one at Liberty, I believe, is a unisex?
yep.
The one at Justice is male, female, is that
Yep.
what this is going to be as well?
Yep, this would be both, yep.
Okay.
The Liberty, we were just kind of tight on room,
Space,
and
yeah.
we just figured that fit for that location.
And my last question is, I know we've got some very talented city employees. Is there any possibility that we would be able to tear that building down?
I thought about potentially doing that, and then just kind of talking with like Ray. He said we have to do the asbestos abatement. I don't think there's going to be any issue there, but we legally can't do that ourselves, so we'd have to hire someone to come do it anyways.
Where is the asbestos in the building?
I don't think there will be any, but
Oh.
you have to do at least the testing and everything.
Okay.
And that's included in their price, and we're just not building demolition people, I guess, so I'd just feel more
It's
comfortable.
always fun to wreck something, though,
Yeah.
isn't it?
So, and I think his, D&G's price is more than fair, for hauling out all the concrete and making trips to the landfill and stuff like that. It's just, we'd clear all of our stuff out and salvage what we can, and then whatever's left, they would take down.
Probably not much that's salvageable.
No.
And the
Yeah.
last thing is that, I'm glad to see that they want to get at it right away, because with the construction on 4th Street, that it's going to be a
Yep.
busy area.
Yeah, D&G said if approved, they would tear down next week, so.
Any other questions for,
Preston, we had talked before when we were doing these new bathrooms with that newer model that doesn't get wrecked, so it's a one piece. Is that what this is going to be?
Yep, this would be as maintenance friendly as possible. The doors will lock automatically at night, the lights shut off, all that kind of stuff. It's all block and it's integrated block color, so it's solid all the way through. We should never have to paint it unless we have to cover up something. That'd be the only time we'd ever have to do anything to the building, or if a porcelain unit would get smashed or something. I did have a option for a stainless unit, but there was like 10 times more expensive, so I just figured we can take our chances and replace it a couple times if we get to that. So.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions?
I have just two quick ones. 6 and 7 on their bid, I'm assuming we don't need a structural engineer or architectural. They
Nope.
just put the,
The only thing we'd have to do, but I don't think we will, just because there's not much weight load, is on that lintel over the overhead door. And we won't need architectural for sure, so.
perfect.
Any other question for Preston? If not, you have the recommendation.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by John, seconded by Jim. Discussion on the motion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting, and the motion passes. We'll move then to agenda item number 6, which is consider the award of bids for pickups for the wastewater treatment facility. Jason.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. I can introduce this topic, and I'll just note that our wastewater department is represented here with Superintendent Bob Van Moore and Scott Trudson, Assistant Superintendent. We did open bids on February 25th for 2 pickups for the wastewater department. The total of the 2 replacements is $38,633.94. That's an offsetting price, including the trade-in of the existing pickups. We did have $59,000 in the budget for this. We did have a number of bids, and you have the tabulation in your packet. The low proposal on both proposals was Marthaler Chevrolet out of Worthington. The difference between the low bid and the second low bid of Lockwood Motors, if you combine the 2 proposals, is just under $5,500. Staff's recommending to award to the low bid.
Okay. Bob, anything you wanted to add?
No, not if you don't have any questions.
We'll open up for questions. Jim?
Well, I don't have questions. This is something I've tossed back and forth. Should we replace pickups? Shouldn't we replace pickups? I look at the prices we're getting for trade-ins on these right now, and I think that these are good prices. If we keep these trucks, and I just did some rough math in my head. If we keep them for 10 years and trade them off, they're going to cost us $1,800 a year to own. And that's very, very reasonable for trucks. I mean, we could be looking at next year, 5,000 more on these trucks. So, and I have a hard time sometimes buying vehicles, but I'm going to support these simply because we got very good values. Understand we're going to Worthington, but I don't have too much issue with that either because people from Worthington do come shop at Marshall too. So I think it's a good deal. I'll be supporting this.
And Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree. And I did do a little bit of digging in because of the obvious media reports on supply chain. And there is some retooling on the Warren, Michigan plant where these trucks are built, and I confirmed it with the salespeople at Marthaler, and I think, Bob, they talked to you about this too, is these trucks very likely will not be built until after July. So we could be a delayed delivery, which I don't see a problem with that at all. It's absolutely guaranteed pricing, but I just, for expectation to the council, that there is a delay, and I don't think it's supply chain, or they're saying it's not, but it's a retooling of the plant. But they will be building 20s all the way out into December. So there will be a delay, but I don't think that backs us in a corner. So I also will support this.
And on that issue, we run into the same issue with our squad car purchases, which is also a reason to be kind of timely about when we place the orders.
Right.
Russ?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only problem I have is that back when we were analyzing our enterprise thing, one of these pickups averages 3,500 miles a year and the other one has 5,600 miles a year. I'm sorry, I just can't justify buying new pickups when limited amount of miles. I know they're old. My pickup is old. I'm not even considering trading in my truck. I just have a hard time buying brand-new pickups, and we're only putting 3,500 miles on a year. Say if it's 4,000, maybe it's 6,000, but I will not be supporting it based upon the usage. Sorry.
Other input, questions?
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by Jim to, for the recommendation on the awarded bids for the pickups for the wastewater treatment facility. Discussion on the motion. Kyle?
For clarification, is this for both pickups?
For both.
As recommended. Other discussion on the motion?
So Mr. Mayor, I think Councilmember Lozinski makes a great point, and that we are getting a great deal with trade-in, but I lean with Councilmember Labatt that these are brand-new pickups almost on their own, and so when we're using so little, why are we burning through pickup trucks, and they have that many miles? We should probably think about being a little more judicious with them and using them a little longer. So I too will be voting against this.
Other discussion on the motion?
I guess the question I'd ask then, and just so you can clarify, Bob, what year are the two trucks we're replacing?
One of the trucks is a 2003 Chevy, and that's what we use in the plant solely. That's why it's got so few miles. It very seldom gets out of the plant site other than running down and getting some parts once in a while. Otherwise, that thing is used daily, heavy pulling pumps around the plant, a lot of runtime hours just inside the plant. So that's got the lower miles, even though it's a 17-year-old truck. The other one is a 2006, and that one's showing the age and the higher mileage because that is out and around town quite often. So,
Mechanically, are either of these trucks needing a lot of work?
They will be soon. You know, they're loose. You know, you drive them around. They're just total wear and tear over the whole things. They're old pickups, and like I said, it's not like they don't get many miles on them. They get used.
So in compromise here, when you think about alternatives and saving the taxpayer money, the first one is used in the plant, moving heavy stuff around. What would be the disadvantage to getting a smaller, like even a Ranger or some UTV that's a heavy pulling, or a little tractor that pulls around? It's a diesel, and that's what they're for.
Yeah, we do that, but then there's also hauling parts. So we're working on projects from one side of the plant to the other, and that truck is running back and forth to the shop and hauling parts. And It's more than that. We used to run like Rangers, and, just when we need the bigger truck, it's not available. And for the price that we get these for, there should be no reason we shouldn't be able to run the bigger truck than we have the crossover of if we need it outside the plant, or if there's flooding around town, we gotta start pulling pumps around town. We got the bigger truck's capability of doing that.
Other discussion on the motion?
Bob, again, according to the enterprise printout, we have a 2016 half-ton Dodge, and we have a 2007 F-150 Ford. Could either one of those be used for
They get
running
used.
around
They all
in the
get
plant?
used. Yep,
All at the same time?
there's several times that they're all gone, yep, running around. We got different projects on different sides of towns, we got different crews working.
Okay, other discussion on the motion?
Steve, just a little comment, like a Ranger costs $20,000 too, that, and I'm, Polaris Ranger or a Ford Ranger. So these pickups, and I'm trying to sway your mind here a little bit, but $18,000, as somebody who buys a pickup every year for my construction company, this is an incredible price we're getting for these vehicles. And I've been a proponent of saying, we set our fleet up on, like Enterprise did, on a cycle of 10 years. These trucks, I didn't realize, they are older. I mean, one's 17 years old and one's whatever.
No,
14.
and I agree with it, it's a method. I'm just looking for the alternatives
Yeah.
because, you spend, again, it's that perception of, are we spending taxpayers' money? Are we saving it? Is this something you would do for your business? Is this something I would do for my house?
On my personal business, at 10 years, I'd look at ditching them because you got to look at the downtime.
Right.
If this truck is down for 2 days to the shop, it's just not the loss of the vehicle for 2 days, it's a loss of the productivity of those employees. So I take my business, about 10 years, my trucks disappear.
Right.
And that's why I cycle them through. I do have the advantage, I can depreciate mine. That's another reason why it's a tax advantage as a private business owner. But it is the downtime of a vehicle in the shop. If it's down for 5 days, and we have an employee who can't do something for 5 days, I'm sure they have other means, but they spend 20 hours figuring out what they're going to, switching stuff around. We just spent $1,000 in labor running around because we're down a truck.
Okay.
And I do weigh that quite a bit in my private business.
Other discussion on the motion? Craig?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, and there's an economy in what we're getting, and it's about buying the quality of tool also. I mean, I can go to the discount store and buy a 1-inch box end combination wrench for $2, and the first time I pull on it, it breaks, or I can buy a Mac tools that last me a lifetime. And part of this is about quality of tools, and the equipment committee did look through these. So there's some merit there. And the other part of this is that this is probably the most frugal department, not that our other departments aren't frugal, but they've put a lot of time and energy into looking this up, and I don't see them coming in asking us for things that they don't need, so.
Any other
I really
discussion on the
support
motion?
this.
If not, we will move to a vote on the motion. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we'll bring it up on the screen. So on the consent agenda this evening is consider the approval for out-of-state travel for the basic SWAT training in Fargo, North Dakota. Consider the approval of the 2021 annual refuse hauler licenses for the wastewater treatment facility improvement project. We have a payment application number 8 to Magni Construction and a payment invoice to American Engineering Testing Incorporated and a payment invoice to Bolton and Mink. Also on the consent agenda is a resolution for support for Marshall Community Services to apply to be a Green Corps host site through the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency for the 2020-2021 program year. And then finally on the consent agenda are the bills and the project payments. So is there any item on the consent agenda any member of the council wants removed for purposes of separate discussion?
Item 10, please.
Any other item? If not, with the exception of item 10, I'd entertain a motion for approving the remaining items on the consent.
Second.
Motion by Steve, seconded by Russ to approve the consent agenda items. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting, and the motion does pass. Agenda item 10, Craig, are you just wanting to abstain?
I just need to abstain.
Is there a motion for agenda item number 10?
To approve item 10.
Second.
Motion by John, seconded by Steve. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll note one abstention. Okay, so we'll move then to the first item of new business, which is agenda item number 12, which is consider the approval of significant industrial user agreements for the wastewater treatment facility. Jason, we'll start with you. I'm sure you'll involve Bob also.
Correct. Thank you, Mayor. I'll just start out right away by inviting Bob Van Moore up, our wastewater department superintendent.
Welcome back.
You've seen in my memo here, this is something that's required by the wastewater department to control industrial users. We want to make sure that we just don't let them dump as much as they want or whatever they want on us, which could potentially wipe out the wastewater treatment plant, in essence, carry through and damages the rivers. So we've had these agreements in place with industries. There's certain protocol that when they get a certain size or a certain amount of loading that we have to control them. And so currently we have 5 significant industrial user agreements in place that we'll be looking at approving tonight. Viessmann Trucking is a new one. They've been doing enough loading, and we've kind of brought them over the threshold, so they're actually considered an significant industrial user now. So I went through, discussed everything with the industries. Dennis has reviewed all of these agreements prior. The Viessmann is a new one. Dennis went through back in January and reviewed that one, and there was no issues with that one. So the industries have all signed them and agreed to them. Now it's just a matter of the council approving them and processing them through.
Okay. Questions for Bob?
Yep.
John? Bob, how much, I would say headroom, how much margin do we have on other companies looking to move into Marshall? Or are we sitting?
You know, there's several different parameters. You know, we kind of monitor BOD, which is a strength. We had total suspended solids, which is a solids, phosphorus loadings, flows. There's several different ones, and depending on which one you're looking at, there's still potential of 20-25% available that we could go over. So each one we'd have to look at individually and determine, you know, if it's going to be an issue or not.
And which also applies if any of these do an expansion, they have some room to do that in Marshall as well.
Yes, that'd have to be a discussion. So,
Okay,
yep.
good question. Any other questions for Bob? If not, is there a motion to approve the agreements?
So I'll make that motion.
Motion by John, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Steve. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. And we'll close the voting. And the motion does pass. We'll move then to,
No, I.
that was an abstention.
Russ
Russ's
didn't
did
register.
not. Russ's did not.
Oh,
Sorry.
so you got the vote? Okay, very good. We'll move then to agenda item number 13, which is South First Street Reconstruction Project. We have a resolution to consider that would receive the feasibility report and call for a hearing on the improvement. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. This project consists of complete reconstruction of South First Street between Southview Drive and George Street. And you see the line extends a little further to the north, and the purpose for that is there'd be sidewalk added going 215 feet north on the west side of the road to make a connection to the existing sidewalk system. We would propose at this point in time to do a road width of 36 feet with sidewalk on the west side. There'll be water main replacement. There'll be sanitary sewer replacement, and there'll be storm sewer catch basin and leads being replaced. The project would follow the standard assessment policy like we typically do. Our estimate at this point is around $1 million with engineering considered in the costs. I think that's it.
Okay. Questions for Jason? John?
Just probably more, I don't know, more of a question or a comment, but obviously from earlier public hearings, sidewalks always become a interesting topic. And along this stretch as well, there's quite a few mature trees. So I think as you develop this, you probably want to make sure, those questions that are going to come up relative to that are addressed and coming in, because like I said, there's when you notice it as you're going through there, there's a lot of maturity on the trees and and in some cases, some buckling of sidewalks. So there definitely needs to be some work done on those sidewalks, but really need to really look at what has to happen with some of the vegetation around there. So.
Yeah.
And would also, in that assessment, I think we'd also look at the species of tree too.
That's
So
as well.
Yeah, that's good input, Councilman. One thing I would note is the purpose for only proposing sidewalk on the west side and not on both sides like we typically like to do is we did take a look at the mature trees in the area, and we thought we would end up doing a lot of damage if we try to fit all this in here. So our goal and our hope is to minimize tree removals and see if we can fit it in there without causing those disruptions. That'll be a burden to the property owners.
Russ?
Jason, just a question. As you head south on South First Street, is that a 36-foot wide?
It is 40 feet wide.
So that's 40. So we're, just so the people that are maybe listening or people, or the residents that live on South First Street, we're narrowing the street by 4 feet.
We are proposing
Okay.
that.
And on the other end, it's
40 feet.
40 feet all the way up to, is it Greeley, I think?
I believe it is. I don't know. I would stop short of saying it is for sure up by Greeley, but where we'll be stopping our project, it'll be 40 feet on the north side. We'll do a taper, and I think we might do it over an intersection so you won't notice it so much. But and we do that in some other places in town. It's not anything that we don't already have out there. We just think it sets us up for future road width narrowing as well.
And to touch on that, I know we discussed this at the committee meeting, it's a cost thing. Now, if you want to explain that a little bit, why we were looking at doing this is short-term cost and long-term cost of maintaining these streets.
Yeah, absolutely. You have the initial investment, obviously, that we can save by reducing the cost. That saves the homeowner's assessment, that saves the city money. And then when the city's currently footing the bill on mill and overlay projects and chip seal projects and general maintenance, if we can keep these streets smaller, that reduces those costs. It also reduces the cost of managing stormwater, which is something that we don't think about a lot, but the more pavement you put out there, the bigger the pipes, the more ponds, the more flooding. So we try to reduce those things where we can. It's good for the environment.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, you have the resolution. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion by Jim,
Second.
seconded by Craig. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote.
Second.
Use your finger.
Okay.
We'll close the voting,
Mouse off the paper.
and the motion does pass. We'll move then to agenda item number 14. Are you the representative from, okay. Agenda item number 14 is to consider a proclamation for the month of April to be Sexual Assault Awareness Month. With us tonight is a representative from New Horizons Crisis Center, so you can come up if you want to present.
Okay, so my name is Brianna Holmquist, and as he said, I'm with New Horizons Crisis Center. I'm the volunteer and SMSU coordinator there. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This is an annual national campaign to try to raise public awareness about sexual assault, also to educate communities and individuals on preventing sexual violence. This year's theme, which is selected by the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, is I Ask for the second year in a row. This theme centers around the concept and the importance of consent. In the past years, New Horizons has hung teal ribbons on Main Street in observance of this month. That is something that we are still waiting pending approval for this year. This year, we are asking the towns and counties in our service area to officially proclaim April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Murray County just did this last week, and Redwood Falls will be doing the same next week. New Horizons will also be doing several other events and activities throughout the month of April.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
I move to issue the proclamation for the month of April to be Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
I'll second.
Motion by Craig, seconded by John. Now, discussion on the motion. Thank you for you and your organization's efforts. If there's any objection to the teal ribbons, I don't think there is. There should be no problem, right?
There's a permit process for that, and I know that we've approved them in the past, so it's probably just a timing thing. I don't think it's going to be held up by engineering in no such way, shape, or form.
We've asked for a public or private use of public right-of-way permit. That's kind of a mouthful, but that's the permit we've asked for. So it's a free permit. We just need the application, and contact name, and phone number.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting, and the motion does pass unanimously. We'll move then to agenda item number 15, consider approval of a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Action Mobility Foundation. Questions about this?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by John, seconded by Russ. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting, and the motion does pass. Move then to council reports, the commission board liaison reports, agenda item number 16. The Southwest Regional Development Commission will meet on Thursday of this week. Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Southwest Amateur Sports Commission met at noon today, and we had a meeting with the folks from the Marshall Soccer Association, and they talked about their program, talked about their needs, their goals, kind of their operation, and it's pretty impressive. I was really happily surprised by just the sheer number of players and the success of the program. And one of the things that we're going to work on with them is a cooperative collaboration to continue to find them green space that can be dedicated as combined use, shared use, what have you, to make sure that they have practice fields and competition fields in order for them to continue to do their program and actually host some more tournaments and jamborees. It was really pretty impressive, and I think probably a little bit maybe not understood or recognized as strong as they are. So it was really encouraging to see that, and I hope that we continue a cooperative effort between Southwest Amateur Sports and the Soccer Association. It looks like a really good piece in the community. I know that there's a lot of interest, but I didn't realize how big they actually were. They have numbers in exceeding 150 players actively involved and do quite a bit. So it was really refreshing. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Craig. Steve?
Mr. Mayor, mine did not meet.
Glenn?
Public Housing Commission met yesterday, and every year the Public Housing Commission works on capital projects, and the project we're working on right now are patio door replacements, and we're going to be replacing 37 patio doors, and then there's also going to be some corridor lighting replacement. We received an update on our website development. The new website for the Public Housing Commission should be up and running fairly soon. And then Planning Commission meets tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. John?
Mine did not meet.
Russ?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Library Board met last night. They continue, and I apologize to the council, that they continue to have problems with the geothermal system. Their local contractor, Bisbee, has been very receptive to coming over and helping, but they spent about $9,000 in the last few months trying to get their pumps fixed, and another pump now needs to be ordered again, so they continue to have problems with their geothermal, so hopefully that is taken care of shortly. Otherwise, we'll be looking at a very big expense for the county and maybe the city. They're also starting contracted with a company called Unique Gentle Nudge Services. Presently, they have about $8,600 in materials that have not been returned. So what they're looking at is it's basically a collection company, and they're going to try and recover, some of these dollars or some of these materials that have not been returned. Our hope is that we can get half of them returned because it's, as Michelle said, it continues to grow. On a more positive note, the library staff is going to be completely aggressive in helping with the census. They had a chance to order, they said a couple hundred maybe, and Michelle said maybe a couple hundred bookmarks, and the gal said, how about if I give you 700? So the bookmarks are going to be out, so they're going to be handing out, and the staff is going to be trained on helping, especially the minorities with the census counting and things like that, so they're doing a very good job. And then the other last thing is that they put out their calendar of events for March and April, so I'll just share that with you. And the other committees have not met. Thank you.
Just a quick question. The collection of materials, is that our materials or is it Plum Creek's or a combination?
I believe it's our materials. Yep.
Okay.
And we've talked about, they have this children's fines too, and we're trying to develop, or the staff is trying to develop a reading program where the fines can be eliminated if a parent comes in and reads, or a parent or grandparent or somebody comes in and reads to their child, and then we'll eliminate the fines, so, yeah. But the materials is a big thing, and most of them are DVDs. The majority of the things that aren't returned are DVDs, so.
Okay. Jim?
Mine have not met.
We'll move then to council member individual items. Craig, let's start on your end.
I have nothing, thank you.
Steve, I think you have some props.
I've got some stuff here, and it's pretty timely. I don't know if anybody's seen Callow today, but COVID-19 just got real. They've had their first case in South Dakota, first death in South Dakota. And so that's why I was late today, and I apologize for that. But being part of the Avera system, we have now gone on high alert as a system response. So the most important thing that I can tell everybody is, and I'm wearing my doctor hat now and the city councilman hat, wash your hands, cover your cough. If you're sick, stay home. Don't come to work. Call in. I think the whole country is on high alert for this, and so nobody's epitaph on their tombstone ever said, God, I wish I would have gone one more day to work. So just stay home, and if you're concerned about it, you've been exposed to somebody who knows it or has had COVID, or you're worried about it, we're telling people, there's a nurse line that we're telling people to call. Don't come to the clinic right now, because if I get sick and I'm your doctor and I can't take care of you, and all of our nurses get sick, we're in deep trouble, folks. So stay home. If you're sick, stay home. Here's what you got. You got the wipes that are bleach-based or Lysol or Clorox. You got your hand sanitizers. And I know there's runs on these, but use them. The best thing you can do is wash your hand with soap and water, 20 seconds, keep it dry, cover your cough, sneeze or cough into a Kleenex and throw them away, and then wash your hands. That's the most important thing that you can do. Don't panic about it, but be smart. Stay home. If you're sick, stay home.
Thank you, Steve.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. I'm sure when we get to Sharon's report, you may also want to touch on the same topic. So,
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
I have nothing else.
Glenn?
I have nothing.
Jim?
We had a city hall meeting last week, so I'll report on that. We had some discussion on if folks remember the staircase that used to go up the stairs. We could not save that. The contractor tried a couple steps. It just was not salvageable. The good side to that, it's either going to be a neutral cost or maybe even save us a little money. So at this point, we're going to assume it's neutral. If it saves us money, great. The other issue we run into is a fire escape, and actually Glenn Olson is not here. He believes the contractor has come up with an ingenious way to solve that, a fire escape out of the existing building next door, which will also be very neutral cost to everybody. He was explaining it to me tonight, about lifting a platform up and out of the hole, but it seems like if it can work, it'll work really great. And again, very cost sensitive because they know that the committee is very cost sensitive. As you can all see, the project's going well. There isn't much left of Old City Hall. So take your picture soon because it's going to start being rebuilt. And that's all I have.
Russ?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received a text last evening after I got home from the library board meeting that a resident was very upset about the corner of C Street and Saratoga again. She sat at that intersection trying to make a left turn for approximately 10 minutes. And she was the third car in line, plus there was, she said, about 20 cars or multiple cars behind her. She's asked, is there anything that the city could do, maybe talk with the school district again? I know I brought that intersection up before when the construction was happening, a three-way stop. Everybody that I've talked to or whatever have come back to me and they said, why don't we leave it that way, a three-way stop? And I think the city sometimes says it's a school issue and the school says it's a city issue. So I'm just asking, maybe Jason, you can get a hold of the school and maybe with officer or Director of Public Safety Jim Marshall, maybe just observe it a couple of days, and I don't know what can be done, but if you're taking a left-hand turn off of C Street onto Saratoga, I think you can wait there a long time, especially at the peak times after school, so just bringing it up. The other thing I have is that when I attended my over 29 driving course, to get my discount renewed again. The instructor brought up an interesting thing. There are two symbols for bike lanes, and I was not aware that Marshall used one versus the other, but there's a symbol that allows in the bike lanes for bike traffic only. Cars cannot go into it, or vehicles cannot go into it. And there's another symbol that allows vehicles to go into it if there are no bikes. So in my driver's manual way back when, a long time ago, they always said when you were going to take a right turn, you wanted to go as far over to the right as possible to take a right turn. With the bike lanes there and the current markings, technically, we're not supposed to do that. So I would ask maybe that we just take a look, if we continue to have the bike lanes on the street, that we change the markings. I don't know if our public safety officers are going to give anybody tickets for going into those lanes. I would doubt it. But I was not aware that there's two signals, or two, yeah.
Yep.
So maybe the two bicyclists that are on the council can input on this.
Well, and Jason, we've had lots of discussion about the type of bike lanes markings, but you may want to speak to this, or if you're not prepared tonight, at another meeting.
I can touch on it, and if you want to have another meeting where we do more of a deep dive, we can, but you're correct, there are two different symbols, and when you use the symbol that we have down on the road, you accompany that with the line work to indicate that it's a dedicated bike lane. When you use the other symbol, you don't put the lines down, and you put just the symbol down on the road, and you actually shove that symbol a little more into the driving lane. And you're essentially signaling to the motorist that this is a bike route, and they should be expecting bike traffic and be aware of it. Naturally, bikes can use the road without any markings, but the purpose of the other marking, which is kind of called a share-o, like share the road, share-o, it's like a slang term, but it's a shared use lane. It's just indicating that there's bikes on this bike route. And if you want to go that way, if the council desires that, we can talk about it. But right now, we have a dedicated bike lane.
And fully recognizing that traffic is going to veer into there occasionally, obviously, when there's not a bike there, or when you're approaching a corner, or maybe you're meeting a vehicle. So
Correct.
So that's the risk that we take. So.
Yes.
So just a question, so on the other symbol, we would not have to paint the lanes on the street?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's recommended you use just
Good to
that
know.
symbol.
Yep, thank you.
And Russ, 2 years ago, we had a lot of discussion about this. It was, I think, the year before you came on council. I think you're part of that too, Craig, is we had actually, from PI&T, came recommending not doing the lanes and doing the share, and then our two bikers explained to us the betterment of why we should do the lanes. So, I mean, and it's good to have this discussion again, because it is expensive to paint the lanes too.
It's good knowledge for our residents as well, you know?
Right.
for both the biking and the motor.
Yes, that's it.
Anything else, Russ?
Nope, that's it.
John?
Thank you.
The only thing, comment I heard this last week relative to City Hall is there's definitely transparency in civil. So I thought I'd pass that on.
See at City Hall, see all the way through
That's
it.
pretty good.
That's it, John?
That's it.
I have three quick things. First off, thank you for those of you that attended or were able to attend the State of the City address last week, as well as the rollout of the branding. I've heard numerous positive comments about not only the branding, but the research and the message accompanying the branding. So thank you for that. Secondly, earlier this evening, there was some discussion about the bids for roadway construction projects at the Area Transportation Partnership of MnDOT last Friday, which I am a member of. They did talk about that, and specifically, well, the elevated prices are really all on all their projects around the state, but they're especially high on the concrete surfacing, and whether that's because of materials or whether that's because of just a number of projects and the limited number of concrete paving contractors that are available. They're not exactly sure, but they are looking at higher than anticipated costs on all their projects. And that includes the Highway 23 project between Cottonwood and Granite Falls that was bid this past Friday, and construction will start on that project on May the 4th. There'll be an extensive detour that will start at County Road 9 in Lyon County, and then go all the way to the casino at Granite Falls, just west of Granite Falls. So it'll be a long detour. That project was 27% higher than what the engineer's estimate was. So because of that, MnDOT will need to shift some funding from some other projects, but did recognize that both because of the importance of Highway 23 as well as the deterioration of that stretch of roadway, it's important to get that one done. And then finally, I'd say tomorrow I'll be attending the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities Legislative Conference in St. Paul. And then next Thursday, the League of Minnesota Cities has their legislative conference, and Sharon is scheduled to attend that also, and I'll be attending that. And then the day prior to that is the Minnesota Transportation Alliance, which Marshall is a member of. They will be having their legislative day. I'll be attending that, and also the Highway 23 Coalition has their legislative day next Wednesday, too. So there's lots of activity at the Capitol right now. With that, we'll move to staff reports. Sharon?
I really appreciate the feedback and help on the coronavirus, because it's always a good reminder to know what we should do to help contain it a little bit. We are invited to a meeting tomorrow. Southwest Health and Human Services is having a planning meeting at 3:30 at Merritt. I know Avera has been invited, and Councilmember Schaefer is on that list as well. And we'll take some cues from them on some direction on planning on how to handle potential fallout from it. The City of Marshall actually has a draft contingency business continuity plan. We have not vetted it through staff yet. Council has not seen it. So it's just something we'll have a discussion about as well following that meeting with Public Health. A lot of it is, as Councilmember Meister mentioned, is what do you do if you have staff reduction? So discussion on human resources, policies, outside training, we'll have to evaluate that too, or outside travel. Many different areas that we'll take a look at, and so it's good to get the information, and we'll try to share as much as we can as we go forward as well. Two other really quick comments. the City Hall Committee, maybe I mentioned this earlier, we actually are meeting every 2 weeks. And I know Glenn has provided, I think, weekly updates to the committee too. So it's been a really good, a good back and forth sharing of information. This is obviously a very high profile project. And we know we've gotten a lot of feedback early on about the project, and hopefully the project will continue to be a really good project in terms of cost. Always those unknowns, but we've got a good venue to share the information, so that's been helpful to staff. And I do want to just kind of mention a little bit on branding. We still have a lot of work to do on that. Obviously, last week was just the initial rollout. There's many, many different areas where we've kind of got to implement the brand. We'll do that actually 6 months to a year, maybe longer. And, you know, there's a few comments out on social media, but it's really not that bad. Some of the feedback, it's not all positive, but we kind of expected that. I know that I've been getting a lot of really good feedback, and the logo itself is really, it was meant to be abstract, not literal. So people see different things in the logo. It's no different than the picture we saw tonight with the duck and the bunny. One person sees it this way, another person sees it that way, and the logo is really designed to give it different looks to different people. And so we're really kind of happy that that's, you know, some of the earlier comments about what people see or don't see. So I'll just add that, and that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions for Sharon? If not, Jason?
Thank you. I would just like to update the council that Lyon County is planning a mill and overlay this construction season of County Road 33 between Highway 68 and Highway 23. So that's a nice, much-needed surfacing improvement that we'll see this summer. They're working on flushing that project out right now, and they'll let it soon. The building department held a contractors meeting on February 26th, and that went well. We took it as an opportunity to speak with our contracting community about the new building code changes that were coming forward, and have an open conversation with them. Not a huge attendance, but with those who came, we thought we had a good conversation. We've got a public information meeting coming up on Thursday for 2 projects. At 5:30, we'll be talking with the residents around Buffalo Ridge Concrete about a potential stormwater drainage project back there to fix the flooding issues. This is the first phase of implementing stormwater improvements as identified by engineering staff with Bolton and Mink out in that area. We'll seek some comments and help kind of put the idea of the project together, and we'll come forward hopefully to council at a later date with a proposal and a proposed project. At 6:30 after that meeting is a meeting with the residents along South First Street to discuss that project that we mentioned tonight with the feasibility report. The council folks, council people in those wards did get notice of this meeting, and we can't all be in the same room at the same time, but we'll help ensure that there's 2 and 2 if that's what we need to do. Lastly, I think with the melt and watching the river, and everybody's kind of been paying attention to that, but everything went very well and fine, and we have nothing really to report there, which is good.
Thank you, Jason. Dennis?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just continuing to work with Jason on that Legion Field Road, Buffalo concrete area over there. Would be attending that meeting on Wednesday evening. And as Jason said, hopefully we'll be bringing the project back shortly. I did have a response today from the MAHA Board of Directors. They reviewed the long-term rental agreement that was out there, and they came back with a few requested changes. So I'll be working with them, and hopefully we can bring that to council on the 24th. And then I continue to work with, let's see, we have ongoing meetings with Lyon County Sheriff's Department, Marshall Police Department, the Lyon County Jail, Lyon County Attorney, myself, and Western Mental Health Center. We're trying to establish a program to divert criminal activity that's really not driven by criminal matters. It's mental health issues, and we're trying to catch them first before they get into the criminal system. There's a program that's been implemented in Mankato and Blue Earth system. Over there, they call it the yellow line. I don't know why yellow line, but if you cross it, then you're in the criminal system, which is time-consuming and difficult. And so we're trying to come up with a project locally that, and every one of us within that room can relate to certain incidents when, why are these people going criminally? We need to divert them. So we hope to have some pilot program launched soon, and more information will be coming on that. So, thank you.
Craig?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, another item did come to mind, and last Friday evening, about 6:35 in the evening, a number of people in town had reported that they heard a loud, multiple, 1 or 2 or 3 booms or bangs, and I was actually on my way home through Mankato and got called. I was about 30 minutes out of town, and so I got a couple of text messages, and then I linked up with the law enforcement center dispatch and ended up linking with the corporal on duty, and we had a conversation, and then a couple more text messages, and then a link back to the law enforcement dispatch. And then I got a text from Alex, who monitors some of the frequencies on the dispatch channel, and it was decided that nobody knew exactly what it was, but it was pretty community-wide, and it seemed fairly significant. I mean, there was description of a number of buildings like Walmart and homes shaking, so it was decided to make use of that really fine drone that the city has acquired, and Jason is our licensed pilot. And if you're not familiar with it, it's actually a FLIR camera on it, so it's forward-looking infrared, and it is a substantial and highly technical and extremely useful piece of equipment. And Jason's Alex, I'm sorry, is a pretty competent young fellow in operating that, but it was decided that we needed, because we didn't know for sure what it was, there was a decision to look at 3 critical assets in town to confirm that there was nothing wrong. So the first thing he did is he went up and he did a flight, and he observed with the FLIR the ADM property. We had contact with ADM's lead person out there to have some discussion, but that facility obviously was manned. The other place that he looked at was Flint Hills Resources, and to see if there was any anomalies there, and then relocated to the airport, and then looked at Flint Hill, or at Magellan Pipeline Terminal. And it was decided that there was no anomalies obvious at any of those sites. There had been no report of property damage or anything else, just other than the boom and the shake. So I did have a conversation with Public Safety Director Jim Marshall, and he's going to make some other contacts to some other agencies to see if there's a different explanation. But just to let people know, I know there was a lot of back and forth on social media about that, and we did notice it, and it is being looked into. So I just wanted to let people know that. But we thought it was prudent that night to be in the dark to go take a look at those 3 critical assets in town to make sure we didn't have an anomaly there. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. The one last thing I would mention, I overlooked it before. Last Thursday afternoon, Public Safety Director Jim Marshall convened a meeting of those that are involved in the Emergency Operations Center, which basically was a walkthrough of how operationally that would function should that be activated. So that was a good, you want to do that type of an exercise prior to the actual activation. So that was good. Steve, did you have something? No. With that, we'll move then to the remaining items, which includes the administrative brief, the information items, as well as the upcoming meetings. Is there any comments on any of those items? If not, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Russ to adjourn. Discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote. We'll close the voting. And the motion passes. We're adjourned.